And so I decided to go and get some therapy. And I met with a wonderful therapist, and I sort of sat there and I said to her, listen, this has happened, and I'm finding that the natural go-to is to kind of, it's almost trendy to blame, let's blame somebody else for this sort of stuff, and let's blame my parents. But it doesn't sit well with me. And so she gave me what I felt was the best advice ever. She said, you know what, how about looking at the impact? And I just thought, yeah, that sits well with me. I can unpack that, because for me, blame just meant that I wasn't dealing with it. I wasn't basically taking any accountability, and blame has no recovery in it. It just has blame. And I wanted more solutions. I wanted to get better. I wanted to stop feeling like I had to constantly please people or work ridiculously hard for a pay packet that was less than rewarding, to feel good about myself. So the idea that you look at the impact and then you can deal with it, you can start to understand it, and you can start to make a plan to recover from it. But sitting in blame, I don't think serves anybody, and it certainly wasn't serving me. That's why I just didn't feel connected to it.
Hi, I'm the self-development coach, Johnny Lawrence, and welcome to another episode of Life Talk, the self-development podcast. Today, I'm very excited to share a wonderful guest with you. I'll be speaking to life and business mindset coach, NLP master practitioner, very suave, I like that, master practitioner, an entrepreneur with a love for helping people take control of their lives and businesses. She has been able to help many people turn their dreams into reality, goals into success, and overwhelm into a thing of the past. Today, I'm speaking with Nikki Hill. How are you, Nikki?
I am very well. Thank you for that lovely, warm welcome. I'm feeling good after that.
There you go. See, well, that's it now. We're all done.
Yeah, we are. Intro is done. Move on.
How are you today? It's quite warm where we both
Good.
are.
Yes, it is warm. I think after we've spoken, it's time to head out into the garden and make the most of it. So, yeah.
Well, hopefully it's in for the weekend as well. So,
which is great.
Yeah.
Good.
So for those that can't see us, we're locked in our rooms with windows closed and no fans because it makes too much noise. So if you're watching and we profusely sweat, that is why.
Yeah, we are suffering, aren't we, for the love of our jobs and things like that.
Yeah, I know. Well, this is what happens. And as we were just talking before we hit record, it's the new world where people accept that we can do things from home now.
Exactly. We've forgiven each other in advance, haven't we, for any dogs barking or doorbells ringing?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you're not expecting a delivery, are you?
No, it's arrived. It's all good. Yeah. My addiction with shopping. It's like Amazon does very well here in this household. That's for sure.
I heard you have your own van.
Pretty much. We have our own delivery guy actually who kind of knows us. We're on first name basis, which is great. So it's always good.
That is good. Right. Well, let's get into it. I'm really looking forward to sort of hearing about everything. I mean, we had a nice conversation the other day, but I mean, nonetheless, we did laugh about how we should have just recorded that, to be honest. But,
yeah. No pressure.
I mean, well, for the people that might not have come across you yet, tell people about your remarkable journey towards becoming the person you are today.
Goodness, the long journey to now. So many moons ago, I was a very sort of, I think, a confused adult, didn't know who I wanted to be, what I wanted to do. And I heard about this career in recruitment, which you didn't actually at the time need any qualifications, which is great. I didn't wake up with that sort of, I want to be a doctor or dentist. There wasn't that big childhood aha moment. And so I found myself falling into the career of recruitment. And luckily, it is one of those industries that's really forgiving. You don't have to have, a whole host of qualifications. It's a bit like sort of Ronseal. You've just got to do what it says on the tin. You've got to make sales. You've got to make money. And it really worked for me, I think, because, and what I've learned about myself now is I validated myself so much about the way I achieved and what I did. Having grown up in a house that was idyllic to begin with, and then unfortunately sadly inflicted with sort of alcoholism and a lot of sort of rejection and becoming and feeling quite invisible as a child, and losing that unconditional love of your caregivers, finding myself in the working world feeling very insecure and unsure and unsupported, going into recruitment, which was somewhere where you could prove yourself every month. Your pay packet was like an indicator of how great a person you are. Look, I'm doing really, really well. And it suited me. It kind of, I guess I was band-aiding the wounds that I was not aware of, that I was suffering from at the time. But it was the best place for me to be, in terms of it allowed me to be around so many different humans. And I think that was my real first indicator or idea of what I wanted to do. And that was to kind of help other people. There's a great deal of vulnerability in a job search, a lot of insecurity. And I started to see a lot of individuals who had these brilliant careers, very confident, fall apart at the point of an interview, or feel not capable of a job that I was discussing with them, and being really defensive and kind of like saying, no, I can't do it. And I'm like, you can. And so my curiosity started to really, really grow about human nature and human behavior. And of course, I was right in the heart of what is a stress point in most people's lives, whether it's buying a house, getting a job, and I was in the job part. So I feel really fortunate that a very accidental career was the absolute foundation of where I am today. The building blocks of getting to know human nature, becoming more and more curious about it, and then doing something about it myself. So I first went off and did some additional studies as a young adult, thinking, right, I want to be a therapist, I want to help the world, and soon realized after a couple of years that wasn't quite for me. Perhaps it was a little bit too much held back in the past. And then I went on to sort of find coaching and develop myself there. So I've always said I felt like a bit of an accidental coach in the past. So I'd be coaching people in confidence. I'd be coaching people to feel good about themselves, coaching them to understand what their strengths are, coaching them about their human potential, but without actually really necessarily understanding or having a better toolkit to do it. So it was that aha moment that I thought, oh, I'm going to see if there's something out there. And around about 2015, I did my first coaching course, and the rest is history, as they say. Here I am.
Well, I heard a bit of coaching going on there. I mean, you're absolutely right. Somebody going for a job interview, no matter how qualified you are, that imposter syndrome catches us all out. And it sounds to me like you were doing a bit of coaching in them moments, because that's hard. I've known people go to interviews and just go, just literally leave, because they can't handle it.
Yeah. Carry on walking past the door and not doing it.
Yeah. They've made the effort to get changed and do all the work beforehand, but they just couldn't go through with the interview part. It's really, really, it can really be a massive choke point for people, can't it?
Yeah, it's huge, and it's massive. And if we're fortunate enough to have a stable career, we don't do it that often, and that's the point. So we're naturally going to be rusty at it. We're going to be a little bit of fear behind it. What can I expect? As a recruiter, I did my best to alleviate those fears with really understanding from the client, what style is it going to be, what type of questions might you ask to alleviate that fear. But I think, it's really interesting. It's almost universal. I'm yet to meet a person who hasn't had a little wobble, and perhaps it's because we wait until these pockets in life to actually assess who we are or what our strengths are. And I'm a great believer the strengths exercise shouldn't be just for an interview. It should be for every day of the week. It's like, absolutely, mind maintenance. What are my strengths? What am I good at? And actually being okay with the stuff you're not good at. Do I want to develop that and get better at it, or do I just want to leave it? Is that something, no matter how hard? It's a bit like me in baking. You are not going to see me on the Bake Off. It's like, I have to leave that one. Cakes are store-bought in this house.
I think I've hit a sore point there. Sorry.
You kind of have. Yeah, you kind of have. Years I've spent. But now I'd like to think that I'm okay with it. It's like, let's just walk away from that. It's not going to be my talent, but I've got talents in other areas. So it's interesting. Humans are interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. And I think also there's that point where people transition from say, worker to manager, say, And that's difficult, especially if they're doing it, say, within the company, and all of a sudden they're sat next to all of their peers, and then all of a sudden they have the office and they're supposed to tell them what to do. That's a very difficult transition. So
Yeah.
I can imagine a bit of coaching from yourself at that point would have been very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you kind of, I wish more companies saw that as a key essential to human performance. And what we experience a lot with, say, imposter syndrome is actually it's situational. So something like a promotion is the trigger point. And also, we find ourselves in different dynamics. So the one that you described, we're often having to leave our peer group behind, or we're having to have different conversations. So I experienced it years ago when I found myself in that situation. And so those kind of comfort conversations over a glass of wine, they sort of stop, because you've got to keep a degrees of confidentiality, or a little, you've got to suddenly have a bit of distance between people that you have been really honest and open with. And so that can bring up a load of things for people as well.
You think you're better than us now. That's like,
that's and that's what some people can inflict on you, or actually you might be doing that. A lot of people do the sort of a downward comparison in order to survive, where they think I'm better than you. I'm better than you, because that's their insecurities, that's their imposter at play.
And I think you're so right about the situational stuff as well. I mean, I've been into exams, let's say, I've maybe studied for a course or done a degree or something, and if you ask me outside of the door of the exam room, all of the questions, I'll give you the answers. I walk in mind blank. I'm just not very good at exams. So I think you're right. It's situational. It's not in that sometimes that's not the best representation of someone, is it? An interview or an exam, it's not the best way to figure out if they're suitable for the job, or suitable for the task. So
exactly.
I think quite situational is a really good analysis of that, actually.
Well I mean, the tough, thank you. I mean, the tough part is these things are unavoidable. And it's like, if you want to learn to drive, you're going to have to take a driving test,
of course.
So I think, yes, in an ideal world, we'd be more adaptive to how a human's potential is released, but we have these confinements, or these exams and situations. So that's the point that I think we can start to be kinder to ourselves, and let us, because we have succeeded at some point. You might be rubbish, as you describe, in an exam, but actually you managed to pass your driving test. So we need to remind ourselves that we have been in these situations before, and that we're okay in them, and kind of calm ourselves absolutely. So calm ourselves down, give ourselves a little bit more messages of safety. Will be okay to get through them, because some things are just unavoidable.
I mean, one of the best pieces of advice I had to get through my fear of exams was mind mapping. They said, do a mind map, and just study it. And then when you get into the exam, just put everything that you can remember on that mind map on a separate piece of paper, and then you don't have to think about it again. And I was just like, good idea.
Better than the advice of cheating. But
there is that. Well, it's like having the cheat sheet with you, but you did it in the room. So it's just I thought it was genius. And I got to admit, there was a point I'm like, am I allowed to do this? It felt a little bit like
I hear you can take in calculators nowadays. So I'm sure
there is that. I just want to touch on something you mentioned, and obviously feel free to tell me to you don't want to speak about it, but you mentioned alcoholic parents. Tell me about that, because I'd imagine that has had an enormous impact on the way that you see the world.
I think it has. I mean, it's different now as an adult. I think I'm able to look back on it and reflect in a way that's possibly slightly more sort of understanding and forgiving. But that doesn't take away the kind of the 12-year-old who'd had 12 years of safety, support, security, and then to start seeing your four walls crumble. And we unfortunately had both parents fell foul to alcoholism. One, my father was more functioning. My mother, it just consumed her and kind of took her away from us. So it's interesting that, because I think that for me personally, I have found rejection very hard. I found in the beginning being honest and open really difficult, because I think there was that sort of sense of being judged.
Do you mean like you were quite guarded? that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think that stems from my experience was about hiding my parents' alcoholism. So I think all of a sudden it was just about hiding stuff.
Was there shame there, do you think?
Definitely
Right.
lots of it. I mean, I remember being petrified of sports days, parents' evenings, because there was like, I didn't know what I was going to get, a
Yeah.
semi-sober parent or a drunk parent, or a parent at all. So you get to that point where you are just, yeah, you're just, you're embarrassed, and of course you're a kid, so you blame yourself. I'm not good enough, I'm not perfect enough. Why would your parents choose a drink over you? You wrongly make the problem out to be yourself. Whereas actually, as you get older, you start to understand that people have demons, they have their own weight of the world, and it's not as simple as that. But interestingly, I think this is something we discussed before. Another thing that I really struggled with was actually the blame part. It was difficult for me to blame them, and years later, after my dad had passed away and I was debating a career in psychology, we're known as the wounded healers, those that have kind of suffered and want to help others to not suffer as much.
Can relate to that.
Yeah, I know some of your story. Yeah, absolutely. And so I decided to go and get some therapy. And I met with a wonderful therapist, and I sort of sat there and I said to her, listen, this has happened, and I'm finding that the natural go-to is to kind of, it's almost trendy to blame. Let's blame somebody else for this sort of stuff, and let's blame my parents. But it doesn't sit well with me. And so she gave me what I felt was the best advice ever. She said, you know what, how about looking at the impact? And I just thought, yeah, that sits well with me. I can unpack that, because for me, blame just meant that I wasn't dealing with it. I wasn't basically taking any accountability, and blame has no recovery in it. It just has blame. And I wanted more solutions. I wanted to get better. I wanted to stop feeling like I had to constantly please people, or work ridiculously hard for a pay packet that was less than rewarding, to feel good about myself. So the idea that you look at the impact, and then you can deal with it. You can start to understand it, and you can start to make a plan to recover from it. But sitting in blame, I don't think serves anybody, and it certainly wasn't serving me. That's why I just didn't feel connected to it.
What a incredibly wonderful way of explaining that. I mean, that's that impact versus blame, as a sort of route to recovery and healing. I've never heard it explained that way before. You're on fire. Wow.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's years of trying to work stuff
Of course it
out.
is. Yeah.
And I think, it's yes, there's lots of emotions, and you need to process that anger and that hurt and everything. But I think often it's about interpretation. I get to control that. I didn't get to control what happened to me as a kid. But as an adult, and that's where I think, if we look at it as impact, I can kind of take back some of my power and my control and go, this happened to me as a result, XYZ are some of my personality traits, or this is how I react to certain things. And then I can actually give myself a little bit of a reprieve. I can kind of go, oh, okay, maybe you do overreact to not being included in certain things, but now you can understand it, because it's the impact of all that rejection. And then processing, forgiveness, happiness, all of that stuff can start to come out the other side. But when you're stuck in blame, you're stuck going nowhere.
Because that's the thing, isn't it? I certainly can relate to that. It's not just the negative stuff that catches you out, it's the good stuff. It's accepting love, it's accepting kindness. It's not just as, people go, oh, I don't like it when people are unkind to me. Well, nobody likes that,
Yeah.
But it's actually sometimes when you've had trauma like that, you do find, why would somebody love me? Why would someone be kind to me? And if someone's being kind to me, what do they want?
Yeah.
Suspicion all the time. And one of the words that came to mind when you were talking then was just how tiring it is. It's very, very tiring, very, very draining to have all of these, like, boundaries that aren't serving you in your life all the time. It's
Yeah.
you never enable yourself to move forward because you're constantly pulling yourself back. And I just think it's remarkable, the work and the perspective that you've taken on yourself. I think that's I just hope that, and I'm sure you are, I'm hoping you are someone that can be really proud of himself for that, because that's a lot of good
Yes.
work.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I am. And and I think it's about sharing that work, isn't it?
Of course it is. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I potentially regret not doing, is being more vocal about it. I've always had trouble explaining my story, and I think, like you said before, maybe that's some shame, maybe there's some guilt, whatever's hidden beneath the surface. But I think the best thing that we can do for ourselves and each other is just talk about it, and say, look, this happened, but more importantly, this is the potential, this is what you can be. I think I said to you last time, it was, I had a lot of expectation on parents. I think we do. It's like, you're supposed to be these caregivers, you're supposed to be amazing, you're supposed to help my future. And then actually, one of the other things that I looked upon it is actually, maybe they just gave me the gift of life. Maybe they were just the portal to this world, and now it's over to me.
Yeah.
And again, that really helps. It helps reduce the pressure. We're all putting pressure on each other to be the perfect daughter, to be the perfect parent, and we have whopping great delicious flaws. My parents had a heck of a lot of them, and unfortunately, it hurt me and my brothers a lot. But we've all got wonderful lives, great careers. We're now, we've now worked out that we were terrible pickers in relationships. When you don't like yourself that much, you manage to kind of pick the wrong people. But again, when you're aware of the impact, you go, oh, that's what I'm doing, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to accept love, I'm going to be more open, I'm going to accept myself. And then good things happen. All four of us are in wonderful, loving relationships. And we're taking what life is going to give us, which is some really good stuff.
That is wonderful. That really is. And I mean, I just I just think it's great. I really do. Like the healing that's been done there, and just that the understanding that, and it is difficult. I struggle with it, that people don't do these things on purpose. They're working with what they've got, and they are most likely a product of their own upbringing in some way. So I think that's a really compassionate way to look at it, and I think it definitely makes room for that impact versus blame conversation that you spoke about earlier. So just brilliant. It sounds to me like that was very difficult, very challenging, but what do you feel has been one of the most difficult and challenging sort of experiences that you've had in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's certainly been one of the challenges that I've had, is letting go of the past to allow myself to move forward. I think it's actually been starting businesses have been really quite a big challenge. And I don't know, maybe more so as a woman. It's been my personal challenge, and I think because I've come to the table as well with all of those insecurities. Go back to when I was 30 years old, I hadn't done enough work then. I was starting to do the work to understand what was going on with me emotionally, and why was I holding myself back, and why am I experiencing all this imposter syndrome and walking around feeling like a fraud half the time. But meanwhile, with this undeniable desire to go out there and do something for myself, and make changes, make impact. So I think the biggest challenge in my life has been me, and getting out of my own way, to do the things that I want to do. And I'm still getting in my way. It's ongoing work. So I think, if I'm brutally honest, the biggest challenge has been me.
Wow. Yeah. Great analysis again. You're not supposed to leave the podcast host speechless. But I mean, you touched on it there. Like, I'd love to get your views actually on women in business. I want to sort of get your views on the challenges that you believe that women face, the advantages that might be there for women, and the sort of pitfalls and opportunities that can be there for women too. Because I mean, as you said earlier, it's not just enough to analyze a situation and say this is a bit crappy. It's sometimes it's nice to be able to pass along some solutions or some pitfalls to watch out for and some opportunities there.
Um, well, I think I've got difference of opinions based on when I first started to where I am now. So the women in business now, I think, ride the wave, go for it. It is absolutely there for the taking. One of the challenges going back to my first business was certainly gender bias, and I had a business partner, she was also a female, and we were sort of structuring and looking at the business, and we were having conversations about structuring for sale. What do we need to do? And we were actually advised by a man that perhaps in order to be taken seriously, maybe we should have a man on our board. And we were like, okay, not sure quite how I feel about that. But worse still is we actually debated it and we thought, oh, well, okay, if that's how business is done, then maybe we do need to be sort of, in order to be taken seriously, let's perhaps put a non-exec or something on the board. So that was something that was really difficult. Again, it was really challenging with trying to get funding when we go back sort of 15 years. I always felt that when I compare myself to my male peers, they were like, oh yeah, we just got 100 grand, no problem, from for the business. So I think the challenges were being really taken seriously.
What was the feeling there, though? What was the feeling? So say there was an opportunity for funding and a man got it over yourselves. What was the feeling that you would have?
I think if honest, I think a lot of anger, but then also this sort of sensation of kind of stop being so foolish. You're missing opportunities by holding on to this bias. There are some amazing women doing some amazing things.
Absolutely.
And if I'm gonna be kind of slightly on the side of my own sex, I think we outshine when it comes to balance and solution. And the reason I say that is for centuries women have been balancing work and home and children. And there is nothing like the brain of a woman that kicks into action when they get that phone call from the nursery saying, your kid is sick, could you come and pick them up? And all of a sudden they're like, right, solution. And so they're actively being triggered. Their neurons are being triggered every day of the week to be solution orientated because of this new entity. Their family has come into play. And then that just translates into the workplace.
Absolutely.
So, women are doing some great stuff because of this balance that they're having to find. So I think it's a bit short-sighted. I think it's changing, which is great. I think women in business is really, really topical, which is great. So I think if there is any females out there thinking about it, get on with it, just do it. Do you know what I mean? Just get out there and
give you a call.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you're holding yourself back, give me a shout. But yeah, so I think times are changing. I think women are taken more seriously. But I've grown up through those businesses where a woman gets engaged, you hear the men muttering she's not going to do any work, she's going to be busy planning her wedding. Somebody is pregnant, oh well, they're not going to come back, or they're not going to be really interested in the work, etc. And I think this has been the challenge, is that, and then someone once said you can have it all. Well, what a ridiculous thing to say. Yes you can, but not at the same time. Because if
very
you try
important piece of context, that
absolutely missed off the end of that sentence. Yeah, absolutely. So I think the challenges are hopefully of the past. I still think there's some education, and I get it. It's let's not lose sight of the fact that the working world has been for a long time male dominated. You introduce something new, you're introducing change, and change can then stimulate a lot of fear. And sometimes behaviors based on fear are not the greatest of behaviors.
No.
But I think we're becoming more and more aware. It's more topical. We're talking about it, and actually, I'm really proud to be a female in business. I'm really proud to bring my different perspective, and I love the balance of male and females actually in the workplace. I just think some great stuff can be done through different perspectives. So there's room for us all.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it, actually, the balance. You're right, because whether we like it or not, there are always going to be different views. As one of my female colleagues says, yeah, you'll always get the more selfish view from the man. I was like, well, hey, shots fired. Wait.
Yeah. Maybe that's just biology. Hey? Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just closing that down, what do you think are the sort of pitfalls to watch out for moving forward, and maybe the opportunities? Do you feel there might not be, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you feel there are any opportunities out there at the moment in the present climate for women to really thrive in business?
I mean, I think everything's an opportunity, but it's got to be the opportunity that suits you. There's got to be it's got to be aligned to what you want to do. I think one of the big differences and what I'm enjoying seeing is that actually there isn't an age limit. I think this is just fantastic. When I first started my first business, I was 30 and I looked really young. So that was another reason I wasn't taken seriously. I kind of still looked in my 20s, and so people were like, "Oh, you the secretary? What are you? You're here to take the notes?" It's like, no, this is my business.
Wow. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
So
wow.
It's everyone thinks it's great to look young, but sometimes actually it can be a real hindrance when but it's changing. And
Sorry, no, I was just like calling you the secretary when you're in the business. I mean,
oh, I know.
That's the bit that surprised me. It's just like who's bold enough and brash enough to say that. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
Well, it's no, and I mean it took me aback. I was kind of like, oh, okay, are we really doing that? What was the shameful part is actually not my confidence. Now it wouldn't. I'd be shame on you. That's yeah. But at the time, it's certainly knocked my confidence. But now we're seeing that age is not something it's inhibiting people's success. You can be a 20-year-old millionaire or a 50-year-old millionaire, or or something in between, whatever you choose to be. So that I'm really enjoying seeing. I think that's a great thing for people, that there isn't an age limitation. I've had to break through some personal limiting beliefs, because I've always held age as something that you look up to, and experience is where it really counts. But actually, that youthful edge, I think, and those new ideas and new opportunities, and that resilience. I mean, there's so much bounce back, isn't there, in your 20s? You're like, oh, it didn't work, on to the next. Whereas, in my 40s, I'm a bit like, didn't work, tired, need a little sleep. But so I think there's opportunity there for everybody, which is great. I think preconceived barriers and notions and ideas are being broken down every day, which I think is amazing. I guess the pitfalls might be that there's a lot of portrayal that it's easy. And I'm not saying success has to be hard, but it's work. Yeah, I mean that word is out there for a reason. It is work. You need to commit to it. You need to be consistent. You need to be passionate and dedicated to it. And that maybe there is going to be a generation of people that are going to feel that actually anything less than £1 million isn't successful, or anything less than a kind of whatever followers on social media means that I'm not, or anything less than celebrity. So there's some big pitfalls, I think, to watch out for a lot of us. But I think the important question is what is success to you? Yeah. And that's what you focus on, because that's where you'll find your success in the answer to your own question.
I think that's a really great acknowledgement of, recently there has been that shift, hasn't there, with people thinking that they can't just, what is success? Well, success must mean being a millionaire and drinking champagne on a yacht in Ibiza. It's like, well, no, that's Instagram. That's not real.
Yeah.
Look at what real looks like. And another shift that I noticed as well is, you mentioned it earlier with age, is people that pressure is moving now from, you've got to be married with 2 kids by 30. You've got to have had your own business by this age, and all these different things that people put on and relate to age. Have you noticed that too?
Yeah, I think there is certainly a shift. I think my generation was starting to feel the shift, but in a negative sense, because it's like, oh gosh, you're single at 35. There must be something wrong with you. So I think we're moving out of that judgment that says, actually, whatever a person chooses is okay.
Yeah,
that's exactly their right. Life, it's their right. And I have to say, some of my happiest times was as a single person. That kind of freedom to do what you want to do, but also being alone is the time where you actually get to know yourself. You know, we've got all
Absolutely.
these distractions, or worse still, you know, I've heard people that they believe that their happiness, their security, or who they are as a person will come to life when they find the right person. And it's just like, well, you've already got the right person, it's you, you
Yeah,
know?
you're so right. You're so right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
I think I love the idea that anything goes. You know, I love the idea that there's not a stigma about being married or single. You know, if you want to get married at 25, great, your choice. You
Mm,
know, if you want to get married at 55 or not at all, whatever,
mm,
you know. So yes, it's creeping in slowly, that slightly more open-minded approach
yeah.
to you know, what people's choices are and what makes them happy. And that's the point, isn't it? It's, you
Yeah.
know, it's our choice, it's our life, and we decide what makes us happy.
Absolutely. You're so right. I mean, that moves us forward into another sort of area, really, which is how important do you believe it is as a person to discover your purpose?
So it's a big question, that one, isn't
I
it?
know. Whole other
It's a
podcast.
yeah, no, it's a huge question. I think it's a question that many of us struggle with, and many of us actually can feel quite overwhelmed with. I mean, I'm not. Maybe the answer to that question is in the actual overall experience of living. Do you know what I mean? You
Mm,
get to, and you go, ah, that's what it was all about. Um, but I do think living purposefully is important. I think it's important for our mental health, our well-being. I think, you know, purpose is where we find our meaning, our joy. So I'd kind of break it down, you know, like any big goal. It's like, let's do some bite sized here and just go, you know, my purpose today is to just have a good day, or my purpose today is to spend time with my family because I love them and I want to, you know, have some fun with them. Or my purpose today is to challenge myself, or whatever it is. So I think for me, purpose, if you've got the answers, you know,
mm,
if you know what your purpose is, then that's fantastic. You know, if you wake up every day and go and save lives in a surgery or whatever, then incredible. But sometimes purpose is really subtle. You know, sometimes purpose is where you just feel the corners of your mouth crease into a smile and you're like, yeah, that's happiness, that's joy, that's purpose, you know. So um I think it is really important, but I think it's really important not to get overwhelmed by it, and just to kind of go, do you know what? Again, what is it for me, and how can I have and bring a little bit of purpose into my everyday?
yeah, and I think as well is it can change, right? You know, your purpose
Mm.
can change. Mine certainly has
Sure,
over
you're a
the years.
parent, so your I mean your
Yeah,
purpose must change drastically when, you know,
it
kids come
does.
along.
It does, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
they're here.
yeah. So yeah, it does change, but I think, as you say, purpose is something that can change. Purpose is also something that evolves. It can
Mm.
evolve. Like for me, my purpose was helping people, and I did it through the medium of being a health and fitness coach. And over time, when I got to my 40th birthday, I was reading reviews, and I was thinking, I need to make a shift here. I'm not sure I want to
Yeah,
be going to work in joggers every day
yeah.
in my 50s. And as I read through them, I realized that, you know, everyone was saying, you know, you've helped people change the way that they think, you know,
Yeah,
and that sort of led me on to thinking, well, I've always been a coach, but I'm not sure I need this fitness bit anymore, you know. So
yeah.
it can evolve and it can change, you know.
Well, it's a different kind of fitness, isn't it? It's kind of
Mm,
mental fitness,
yeah,
which I imagine kind of bringing your history and your experience, and then, you know, attaching that to the kind of the mind work is just a wonderful combination. Because I think that's the thing, is we wake up and decide I'm gonna have a good day,
mm,
and hope that's enough, you know. And you know from your years in fitness is you've got to keep doing the work,
mm.
yeah.
Got to
And you've
do.
got to go through those horrible weeks where you don't see any muscle definition, or you don't see any weight loss, or you don't see any, you know. And those weeks are the weeks where you kind of think, oh, I'm going to give up, it's not worth it. But actually those weeks are probably the ones where, you know, that internal transformation is happening, you just can't quite see it, and it's keeping going, you know, because our brain is like it is a muscle, and we don't
Mm,
exercise it. You know, people get up and they go, right, I'm going to eat right today, and I'm going to work out today. But do they actually go, do you know, I'm going to spend 10 minutes on my mind, I'm
yeah,
going to do some exercises on my mind? And the answer is usually no.
no.
Most people don't. They don't spend any time with their mind. And so, you know, they're lucky to have you, because that's exactly what people need. They need the fitness of the mind.
Well, I mean, I always took the perspective that, excuse me, I don't know what is going on today. I was always trying to install habits in people, because I always realized that, you know, in health and fitness, you give someone some diet guidance or advice or even a plan, and you give them a workout plan. And if it was that simple, I would just hand
Yeah.
it over and they would just get it done and it would all be done and dusted. But they don't do it. So that's when we ask the coaching questions. Well, what did you do instead? You know,
Yeah.
What led you to not doing this, or what led you to doing that? And starting to understand the way they think. And in some cases, there were people that, you know, they didn't want to do. They thought they wanted to do weights, or they wanted to do hit
Yeah.
workouts because they'd seen it on TV, and actually they hated it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, doesn't surprise me that you don't want to do it because you don't like it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, and one of the
No.
best success stories I ever saw when it came to weight loss was, I remember a chap came into the gym one day. He had his membership. He did a gym induction, and you know, you never know what's going to happen with people. The guy was fairly overweight. He was quite overweight, and I didn't see him for a year. And then one Saturday he swiped in, and he said, "Hi, Johnny." I went, "Hi." I didn't recognize him, and I looked
Really?
down and saw his photo, and I went, "Whoa, wait,
Wow.
come back, come back." And I said, "Look at you. You look amazing. What's happened?" And he just said, "I just decided one day I was just going to half everything I ate. Didn't change anything else. He just halved
Wow.
everything. He, you know, if he had a pizza, instead of eating a whole pizza, he'd eat half. If he was still went
Yeah.
out for beers with his mates, he just had half the amount." And I was like,
Wow.
"That's what you did?" He was like, "Yeah." And I thought about it logically, and I thought, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does.
You know, so it just shows you that sometimes it can be that key habit that knocks everything else into place. You know, but it's taking the time to train the mind, as you say, to
Yeah.
get it done. But anyway, imposter syndrome.
Mm.
We spoke a bit about that earlier on.
Mm.
I've suffered with it, and I'm sure many people have, but people may not realize they suffer with it. Do you think you'd be able to explain what imposter syndrome is and how you might be able to work through it?
Of course. Um, I am very fond of this subject as a fellow sufferer myself.
Hmm.
It's basically when an individual doubts their skills, talents, and accomplishments. So we can often feel or have this sort of voice in our head that's saying you're not good enough, or be careful, you're going to get found out. I think sort of feeling like a fraud can be a particular one for people. And it's something that, again, you know, as we touched upon earlier, is often triggered by a change in situation. You know, we're doing very well and we get that promotion, and that's our trigger point. So I think the first thing that we can do to really help ourselves is understand what our triggers are, because not every situation is going to have that effect on us. And when we get triggered, we're often triggering our biology. We're often our nervous system is getting triggered, and it's in our sort of dorsal vagal system, which is our fight or flight. So up here is triggered. You know, we're kind of thinking, right, I'm no good at this, I can't do this, and then the body starts to catch hold of that and goes, oh, okay, I need to keep you safe. So we can often find that we're in this sort of paralysis. We don't, we're not moving forward. Worse, we're sort of fleeing, like you said, the whole interview analogy. Some people just kind of going, I'm not doing this, because they're being triggered. So if we can have a little appreciation that actually we are not only kind of got our mind at work, we've also got our body, and we need to recognize that we need to tell ourselves a different story. So if we are feeling triggered, we are still a little bit archaic in the sense that, that's very useful in caveman days, sticking your head out and kind of going, is there a lion? And having that sort of alert system. But nowadays, that's being triggered for things like interviews, like logging on to social media, for some people kind of logging onto their business accounts, whatever it is, we're getting that triggered response. So we need to send ourselves different messages of safety, and put that on repeat. We've also got our neurons firing in a certain direction that's kind of, adding to the story. So it's situational. We're getting triggered. Pay attention to what is triggering you, and don't ignore it. I think the biggest thing is not to ignore it. And there's lots of different techniques that people can employ out there. One of the greatest things is talking about it. Again, the more that we can share that our imposter is being triggered, the more people go, oh gosh, that happens to me too. And there's actually comfort in shared experience. You know, there's great quotes out there by, you know, Tom Hanks, Kate Winslet, people that you can't imagine actually waking up thinking they're petrified to go on screen. You know, they've got awards and seem brilliant in our eyes, yet they're suffering. And I think, be realistic. If you are going to live a life where you are going to stretch and challenge yourself, where you're going to step out of your comfort zone, where you are going to try different things, naturally your nervous system is going to kick in. But instead of letting it stop you, just let it be a really powerful alert that you're about to do something amazing, you know, and just settle it down a bit with some nice words of safety. Again, you know, you can do visualization, you can write things down. You know, if you're saying something in your head, I find it a really cathartic and a great exercise is to actually take it out of my head and simply write it down. And then I take a look at it and I go, well, that's just rubbish, isn't it? You know? So I think the worst thing that we can do is ignore it and bury it and hope it'll go away on its own. And sometimes we need it. Yeah, you know, sometimes we need that alert to say things aren't right, or don't cross the road, or whatever. But I think if we can appreciate that this is universal, most people will experience it. It's becoming more and more dominant now in society because there's more and more entrepreneurs or people out there who are more likely to suffer from it because they're stretching their capabilities, they're stretching their comfort zone on a daily basis. But don't let it stop you. You know, understand what it's there to do. Yes, it is to keep you safe, but you're okay. You know, you've got this. You can do it.
That might be one of the most actionable and concise ways I've ever heard sort of a solution to imposter syndrome. I mean, I just took some notes while you were doing that. Understand the triggers, pay attention, don't ignore, reframe, and understand that it's part of the process. That's lovely. That really is, because these things are here for a reason. And I love the way you said that, like at the beginning about looking out the cave and looking for a lion or a tiger. That's a pretty good idea, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I mean, we need it. You know, we need it, but also there's parts of our evolution that are not quite modern. You know, how do we modernize our nervous system? It's too difficult. So we have to just understand it. And I think that's the important thing, is just understanding that absolutely, you know, we have a nervous system. Our biology is built to keep us safe from those lions, but the lions are now the metaphor, aren't they, for social media, for doing a TED talk, for going to an event alone. And we're being triggered when we don't need to be. But I think ignoring stuff and hoping it's going to go away is just not the solution.
And that's the bit I love. That's the bit for me that I really enjoy you saying, is that it's necessary and that it's there for a reason. Listen to it, because somebody might be doing a speech, maybe they're doing a best man speech or something like that, and they might have that imposter syndrome as, I can't speak out in front of people, I'll be rubbish at this and stuff. And they might take that imposter syndrome as, I shouldn't do this. But actually, if you take your approach there might be an aspect of that you're trying to bring attention to, like, you know, and don't drink before you do it, or
right, absolutely, or enjoy the adrenaline, let the adrenaline power you through.
There's a message there somewhere. I love that analogy of that there might be a message somewhere. There might be, your body's trying to tell you something. It might not be don't do it. It might just be, hey, watch out for this step, or watch out for that rug, or, you know.
Absolutely. Or take your time, slow down, you know, or, you know, maybe it's just saying you're a bit frazzled. It doesn't mean you have to give up. You're just a little bit frazzled at this point in time. You know, you're overloaded. That's why it's all getting on top of you, not that you're incapable. And this thing, we just power through, don't we? I mean, I'm sure you've experienced it in the fitness world. It's like people just go to the point of exhaustion too far. And we're not listening to ourselves. And this is the thing, you know, we're so intuitive, we're so clever, you know, at telling ourselves we need something. It's like, you know, basic headache is, you know, telling you so many more things than you've got a headache. You're thirsty, you're hungry, you're tired, whatever it is. And I think this is the key thing, is to keep understanding ourselves. And then, those alerts can be a wonderful thing. That little fizzle before you go on stage is like, yeah, that's not me running away, that's me getting excited.
Yeah.
And you just start to reframe it. It's, if you're feeling nothing, you're doing nothing. But when everything's going and your neurons are firing and adrenaline's happening and all those sort of stuff, and you're in that slightly sort of, I don't know, almost before fear stage, that's really exciting. That's you getting ready.
That's brilliant, because it makes me think of when your phone alerts you, notifications, if something goes off, it's usually because someone's trying to tell you something.
Call me back.
Yeah, probably. your kids are sick, come and pick them up. Stuff like
exactly.
that.
Something's going on, but it doesn't mean it has to be bad.
No.
That's the point, is it doesn't have to be a bad signal. It can be a signal of absolute greatness, or just a signal where you check in and you go, good or bad, yeah, this is good, so I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah, I love that. Brilliant. I'm loving this conversation. Fantastic.
Me too.
What's one of the greatest lessons that you've learned, do you think?
I would possibly say I've learned that don't hesitate when you should act. I think I've spent a lot of time denying instinct, intuition, gut, and been looking for that kind of factual evidence, or waiting too long to make a decision, which has actually then had, the reverse effect. I mean, one of those examples is going back to the 2008 recession. We didn't act. So we kept hoping that things would turn around. And so ultimately, when we had to make redundancies, I think our people felt like they had the rug removed from them, because we'd made them feel safe in a difficult market, because we'd hesitated. And, some of that's nice. We'd hesitated with optimism in mind that the market could turn. We wanted to be ready for it. But actually, our gut was saying, take action, take action. And I think that's maybe true for others. We hesitate too much. If something's not working, act. If you're in a bad relationship and it's not feeling good, act. Don't hesitate. So I think for me, that's kind of a big lesson, is to trust yourself a bit more, that you're going to get it right.
So just from your perspective, how would you articulate that feeling for somebody that isn't used to acting, when they feel that intuition? How, for you personally, how do you feel that feeling? How do you recognize that feeling that's trying to tell you to act?
I think, again, it's physiology for me. I think it's less mind, it's more gut and emotional. It's feelings.
It's just a strong feeling.
Absolutely. It's the twinkly stuff. It's the non-tangible almost, where it's kind of like, I'm just got this feeling. And I think that's where the struggle is. It's like, well, that's not a fact. I can't write that down. But absolutely, I think again, I just believe we're quite magically made, and if there's something going on with you and there is a message, listen to it and act, and be prepared to get it wrong. I've taken action.
That's how we learn.
Absolutely. I've taken action with facts and they've been horrendous, so it can't be any worse than taking action through intuition and gut, and that but I think absolutely it's a sensation, it's a feeling.
I think that early in sort of human development, that there would have only been intuition, right? There would have only have been that feeling of not sure I should walk on this, or not sure I should touch this, or not sure I should eat this, that sort of intuition. And I think that one of the things that's evolved with us is that distrust of that intuition. And I think that's good advice to say, hey, look, sometimes something's happening inside you can't articulate it. But I love the word twinkle, because that certainly gets it into me. There's a twinkle inside me that's telling me
just a twinkling feeling. And maybe it is, like you're saying, maybe it's that kind of the inner child that we all have, that we suppress and don't allow it out to play or be curious anymore, or just and I think children are wonderful, and sometimes their intuition does mean that they put a finger in the fire and it's not the best result, but absolutely, there's just this we know what we're doing. We do know, we've got all these wonderful senses that help us along the way. So just a bit more trust, and maybe just be a bit more childlike. It's like let's just have a play with this and see how it works out.
It's interesting you say that, because I did the high ropes with my son and one of my good friends and his son this weekend, and one of the kids was really sort of distressed and upset that they were slightly afraid or nervous of the heights. And I looked
Right.
at them and I said, that's perfectly normal. There's
Yeah.
nothing normal about what we're doing. Like,
Sure. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
it's absolutely normal to feel this way. I feel this way. Every part of me is saying, this is a really dumb idea. Why am I hanging
Yeah.
off this thing whilst walking along on a tightrope? This is,
Yeah. Yeah. Feet are meant to be on the ground.
they are. And it's a
Yeah.
perfectly rational reaction. Just so last question, really.
Mm.
As I say, really enjoying this. Sad that we're getting near the end, but do you have anything that you would love to share that you might feel would help someone move forward with their self-development, just as your sort of final thoughts?
I think it's about prioritizing yourself. I think that's the key thing. The trouble is when we need self-development the most is often when we put ourselves last on the list, or we're coming at it from a position of we're not worth the investment. So we'll maybe opt for, I don't know, the cheaper version. I'll just go and get a book off the shelf and hope that helps. So I think really for me, and the more people that actually just see that as necessity, you know, part of their routine is some form of investment in themselves, whether that is, you know, nutrition, health, mind, their coach, and to stop debating it, stop. I think we devalue ourselves all the time by not actually going, I'm worth it. And it's hard, I get it, you know, particularly when, you know, a lot of my clients are coming to me at a point where they're not feeling a great deal of worthiness, or they're not feeling a great deal of confidence or belief in themselves. But that is the point, you know, that is the time. It's kind of like the toothache. If you've got toothache, you go to the dentist. You know, if your mind and your heart's aching, go find somebody who can kind of help you through that.
That's great advice. I mean, I think it's one of the biggest hurdles as a coach is that person that contacts you and says, I think I need coaching towards this goal.
Yeah.
They believe in you as a coach. They believe in me as a coach. They just don't believe they're worth it. They don't believe they're
Exactly.
worth the investment. And that's the hardest thing to get someone to understand, because you want to guide them towards it, but at the same time, you don't want to come across like you're being pushy, you know. So
Sure. Yeah.
it's a very tricky balance to sort of to
It is
write,
the
really.
challenge of the first conversation. I mean, I am kind of a great believer that actually if you can get and not to kind of, you know, hook somebody in so that they feel like, you know, they've got buyer's remorse, but actually is capture that moment if you can, you know, because it that's the point when somebody is willing enough to say, actually, I want to work with somebody because I know I've got more potential, is to just harness that moment, you know, because we all do it, don't we? You know, whether we whatever purchases I think we do, we have it's emotional. So usually we have this high, or then we have this kind of, oh no, and so you're going to have that if you're purchasing and making that decision to work with a coach. Ultimately you're going to go from this euphoric, yes, this is going to help, to, or maybe it's not, but it's, so I think if you can, when you're talking to a coach, is just commit. I don't think anyone will ever regret just kind of saying, I'm going to commit, I'm going to sign up, I'm going to do this. I've done it with the gym. Yeah, I've gone for the walk around and I haven't signed up, you know, and so nothing changes, you know, and I've kind of felt like I'm not worth it, or I'm not going to lose the weight, or I'm not that sort of person. And so I think really if you're brave enough to pick up the phone, if you're going to have that conversation, if you're ready for that change, is sign up, you know, make that decision to work with that person, because you are tomorrow gonna change your mind, but there is something about that commitment that you won't regret.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think you put it best when you said you will never regret investing in yourself, you know, because you won't.
The best investment, I think it's like Warren Buffett, that finance guy, kind of said it's the best investment you will make, and 100%. And if you get the right coach, you know, in whatever it is that you need coaching in, these are individuals that do that. I mean, you do it, I do it. You're constantly investing in ourselves so that actually you can kind of pay it forward. You know, you can. I like to get coaches when I work with my coaches. They're much further on in their journey than I am, because that's what I want to get from them is their investment in themselves kind of comes back towards me. So you know, I think absolutely investing in yourself is just the best investment.
Perfect message. Love that. Tell people what's next for you, and then we'll you can tell them where they can find you and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah, lovely. So what's next for me? Well, I have been busy working away on a program which is called Channeling Creative Genius. So I work with a lot of creative business owners. So we're talking sort of photographers, artists, brand designers, which is incredible. And they come to my door because they've just hit their invisible ceiling. And they know that they want more. You know, they've got a wonderfully functional business and life, but it's just not quite at that other side. And so I put together this program, which is 12 sessions where we really unpack what's going on. And I'm sure you'll agree, often, again, it's ourselves. That's what's going on. You know, it's those limiting beliefs, it's confidence, it's self-belief, all of those things that actually we kind of deep down know it is. But we think it's, you know, we're not quite being visible enough on social media, or we're not quite got our marketing right, you know, but actually it's none of those elements. It's us that we really need to kind of invest in and work in. So I'm really excited about that. And
what was that called again?
Channeling Creative Genius.
Brilliant.
So it latches on really nicely to what you were talking about kind of, you know, childlike and inner child. I think it's quite playful. Because it's about releasing our creativity. It's about having fun again. It's about kind of experimenting. It's about being okay to get things wrong. You know, as kids, that's just part of the course. Yeah, you know, a good day at school is getting 10 things wrong because you've learned something, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
So it's about bringing that back into it's just a bit more sort of, you know, releasing our creativity, being a bit more playful, and allowing ourselves to be released. You know, one of the things I always find interesting, and I sort of say to my clients, is, you know, who are you saving your true self for? You know, if you're hiding this person away, you know they're in there, you know they want to come out, but you know, who are you saving that person for? Why are you hiding them away?
Goosebumps from that. That's a really lovely question. Really great question.
Yeah.
So
it's fun. It's fun work. It's releasing work. It's about, you know, kind of people being able to, yeah, absolutely allow themselves to just be free in who they are. So you can find me in all the usual places. So Nikki Hill Coaching is on Instagram, Facebook, and I have my own website too.
Well, I'm going to put all that in the show notes as well, so make it easy for people to find you. Nikki, thank you so much. It's been a really lovely conversation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and hopefully we'll get to do it again someday.
I'd love to. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
No worries. Thank you.